And welcome back to Janky AF. Now here we have my 1993 Ford Aerostar Sport. And I think this is a perfect quintessential car for RADwood. Now if you're not sure what RADwood is, I'll tell you a little bit more about it as I tell you a short story about how I stumbled with complete dumb luck on two of my favorite cars of all time right here in upstate New York. So stick around and Janky do thanky. So, a little story time here on Janky AF about how I blindly stumbled on two of my favorite cars of all time. And in true Janky fashion, by the time anyone watches this, the RADwood exhibit at the Saratoga Automotive Museum will have already ended. But look, Matt Farah from the Smoking Tire was even there. In a way it's strangely fitting, because it leaves you just as in the dark as I was when I stumbled upon it. And I'll say it again before the video ends, but I highly encourage anyone to go there and visit, regardless of what exhibit is up, because it was just a top-notch experience. We begin on a chilly spring morning. The sweetheart and I are stealing away for a night, about as long of a vacation as we can muster out of our busy schedules. Saratoga is about an hour and a half from where we live, and they also have old hotels, which we both enjoy. As we're driving up in my 2002 Volkswagen Mark IV Jetta wagon manual transmission, which I bought for just $10, and you can watch that video here, she mentions that there is a car museum in Saratoga. So given the sort of la-ti-da, old-timey nature of Saratoga, I'm thinking maybe this will be some old Duesenbergs and Lincoln Zephyrs and things of that nature, which for the record, I'm still super jazzed about. But as I walk in, only an hour before the museum closes, I quickly realize that this is a RADwood exhibit, which is the self-described premier automotive lifestyle event celebrating the 80s and 90s. Now, being the Being the owner of two Ford Aerostars, as well as now two Fiat X19s, I'm totally simpatico with the wedges and the bulges and all of the 80s nostalgia that people my age are beginning to bask in. Also, like a lot of people my age, I spent countless hours of my youth playing the Need for Speed video game series, so I'll let that serve as a proviso. So walking into the exhibit, keep in mind with no context or forethought, boom! A bright yellow Dodge Viper RT10. Now I have to say this is my favorite Viper. I happen to think it's much cooler than the GTS Coupe, and the blue and white stripes is nice and all, but I like the yellow, and especially the emerald green that these came in. This was a perfect car to set the tone, and the 80s music pumping through the exhibit is now starting to get me real riled up. I walk a little further and boom! Jaguar XJ220. Easily one of my top 10 favorite cars of all time. I know the whole story, I don't care that it wasn't a V12, and it was for a time the fastest car in the world. And when you think back to 1992 and go drive any regular car from that era, you will immediately appreciate how far cars have come since then. It's easy for every generation to look back at their formative years and declare them the best, but in many ways this was the sweet spot where technology had progressed so far, but the cars themselves were still largely analog by today's standards. And the designs were just immaculate. This car is so unbelievably wide and long, its lines are so beautiful, so understated, so elegant, and dare I say, voluptuous. It's unmistakably Jaguar, by the way, but something extra special, everything a halo car should be. And in true Janky fashion, it's even got one headlight exposed, as if winking to me. Now here's where I have to give a shout out to the museum curators, because they really do have a lot of influence over how we experience the exhibit, often in very subtle ways. It's very similar to a video editor and the influence that they have over how we experience content. The duration of every clip, the timing, the pauses, all influence how you take in the information.
The handsome, dashing Ford Aerostar for 1989.
So the way the Viper sort of lures you in at first, and then the walls gradually open up, and more reveals itself to you, and every time you see something new, it's like a new shot of dopamine that slowly escalates, building on all these memories and all these photos and all these synapses that you have stored in your mind and you didn't even realize. It's really an amazing thing, so I commend the curators of this exhibit in particular. So as I'm basking in the radiance of this Jaguar, I spin around to see the exhibit unfolding, and directly behind me, right in the corner, is the unicorn of unicorns, the Asdera Commendatory 112i. I have been obsessed with this car for as long as I can remember, and here it is, staring me in the face. And what's weird is I had no warning. Last year I went down to Pennsylvania with my dad to see the Norfolk & Western J-Class 611, another one of my heroes of design, and it did not disappoint. But for that I had warning, foreshadowing, and anticipation. This is just straight out of the blue, and it's a completely different feeling altogether. So here's how much of a freak I am about this car. And granted, I only had an hour in this museum, so that limited me. But I had to do a once-over of the whole show, and here were some of the quote-unquote less noteworthy examples I had to give my passing credence to before getting back to my icon. Okay, Porsche 959, yeah, stretched out 911 looking thing, technological tour de force, cool seats, yada yada yada, great. Bugatti EB110, very cool, unsung hero that laid the groundwork for the Veyron and Chiron, kinda looks like a French Diablo, cool doors, very nice. Iconic BMW M3, really amazing Lotus Esprit with yellow wheels and a really cool shaped fuel door. And I'm ashamed to say, I actually did spend a minute here with this purple Plymouth Prowler, say that 3 times fast, tucked away in the corner, which was later made into a 4-door and marketed as the PT Cruiser, ironically the only one offered with a manual transmission. But then I quickly headed back to turn to my main attraction, the Isdera. Now if you don't know about this car, do some digging. It was sold at auction a few years ago after a long mysterious absence, and that got it more press than it had had in the previous decade. Part of the reason this car is so special is that there is only one, despite vague notions of there being a second, which I also made a video on, and I dare say it's the most cumulative look at this strange story, so please give that a view if you're at all interested in this car. The cool thing about seeing a car like this in person is it's like seeing the Manhattan skyline for the first time after you've seen it in a million pictures and videos. Except with this car, there is only so much media available on it, so it's kind of the same 20 or 30 pictures over and over again. There are all these portraits of this car seared in my brain, and there's the simultaneous satisfaction of seeing those details, the periscope over the driver's door, the perfectly 90s blue interior, the iconic Isdera Eagle logo. But then the little details you never could have noticed in those photos start to jump out. The intricacies of the bright red tube frame chassis setup and white suspension components. The custom logos on the back affixed to the wire mesh with a simple Phillips head screw. The odometer with the mileage. The car which became an icon becomes a car again, and makes you appreciate it that much more. This is a car that can be driven down roads. So we hope you enjoyed that little story time here on Janky AF. The Saratoga Auto Museum will have a new exhibit coming out soon, a Bond car exhibit, which I will definitely be checking out. RADwood you can find anywhere you can find anything on the internet, and you can check that out. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. And until next time, Janky do thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
So I hope you enjoyed this little story time here on Janky AF. The Saratoga Auto Museum is you have